Well, hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Cyclops, Blue Team, the newly buffed Cyclops. And I must say that his true focus ability is absolutely outstanding, but his sig ability is absolutely garbage, which I ultimately will think heavily hinder his popularity. Now don't get me wrong, I do think he has his uses, but overall, so far, I'm not over the moon with his potential in the game. That said, I do find him very, very fun and very, very nukey. So, let us take him for the spin. So obviously, the first mandatory Winter Soldier fight, and I must say, Winter Soldier's AI obviously is making his playstyle very difficult because Realm Legends champions typically do not like to come in for intercepts, and it is not the easiest thing to do to have kind of like a smooth run here. But this time we succeeded, and this is gonna be an ongoing theme with Cyclops. Just about every fight that I tried to record with Cyclops, I had to do it a couple of times because um, yeah, I don't think he's gonna be the most safe or consistent character to play if you want to get good, nukey, decent results. Which is gonna be my first advice for the most people. You do not want to go for that many intercepts as Cyclops for the most part, in my opinion, because yeah, you might not have as many precisions when you start your nuke, but you will avoid a lot of things like that. Because intercepts in the game at the moment are in a very iffy place, and AI is quite awful too. So here for Winter Soldier, I'm gonna go for the full rotation. With the level 3, I did get to my 20 precisions fairly quickly and painlessly. You guys can see some very, very cool and interesting things here. So I do have Storm Relic on him that is helping him a bit as well. But effectively, 6-star rank 3 nuked down the whole 550k with a single rotation in 1 minute and 12 seconds. That was awesome. That, got me very, very hyped. And he does have damage for days. When you do get to your 3 bars of power, you will be able to finish out just about any fight that doesn't significantly hinder your special attack damage. As long as you can do regular normal damage, your level 3 rotation will kill anything. The level 2 rotation ultimately does feel significantly more inconsistent, and that does heavily rely on crits and precisions and everything else. So here again, I'm trying my best to get as many precisions as I can before I ultimately launch my special attack. And the cool thing is, if you have enough precisions, you don't even really need to bother trying to intercept with the special attack. So I don't know why I tried to intercept there. It was really unnecessary at this point. So here I'm just going to drop my level 2, and this is going to be the level 2, level 1 rotation that he has. So level 1 and another level 1. That only did about 30%, 170k. Did still finish most of the Battlegrounds fights, but I did have fairly bad crit RNG here, I must say. But I still think, if this was like a 7-star rank 3, that rotation will also nuke down just about anything. So that to me kind of paints a fairly clear picture. Your Cyclops is going to function similar to Titania. You basically want to get 3 bars of power, and then you're going to finish out the fight. Which is also going to pose one of the biggest problems in synergizing with his sig ability, because you don't use your special attacks for a very long time, and then you spam them, which means your adrenaline mechanic is going to be consistently depreciating. Now, this last fight was, I believe, minute and 46. So the first one was minute 12 with level 3 rotation. This one was, take a look, minute 44. Then, for the sake of curiosity, I brought in Professor X, because Professor X is kind of similar-ish in his ramp-up sense, I guess, where you build up to nearly 3 bars of power, and then you start spamming your special attacks. So I actually did have very, very good Professor X fight. I hadn't used him forever, but we basically did just about everything as exactly as I wanted. I built up to nearly 3 bars of power, spammed a bunch of special attacks, maintained all my prowesses, gained all the extra prowesses. But here we go. We're gonna see it here. My first prowess, I'm gonna go for damage, charge heavy attack, damage, charge heavy attack, damage, charge heavy attack, damage, and dash back. And that was like the first rotation there, which is still more than Cyclops did with his first, what Cyclops did with his first, level 2, level 1 spam type thing. But obviously, you could argue that Professor X's ramp up is harder and more finicky, with forcing you to charge your heavy attack, and it is generally more skill intensive, I would say, than Cyclops is. To ramp up Professor X in a generic fight. Here, my parry stands are long and it's made easier, but there we go. So another level 2 here, and the soldier's nearly dead, and I'm gonna go for another level 1, and I'm gonna go in for another level 1. That's fine. And ultimately, that one was 1 minute 46, 44. So it's basically similar-ish, or kind of longer type fights with Professor X. Obviously, Professor X does have, I'd argue, a slower start and a bit slower ramp up. Now it's going to be kind of the interesting bit. Obviously, in these type of fights against Deadpool and everybody else, you kind of want to do the same thing. You ramp up and then you start spamming your special attacks. That means that you're not going to be nuking anything. Just like Titanium. Titanium can be moderately fast. 48 seconds, 50 seconds, something like that. It doesn't really do fights in 30 seconds like nukes. That is not a deal breaker at all. It's just a fact here that, most of the fights with Cyclops are going to be just about exactly the same length, and it will entirely depend on AI and crits. But the story that is, again, level 2, level 1 spam, and the champion's dead. And this took 43 seconds. I'm going to go on and do a bit bigger health pool. And again, ramp up in the same way as before. Do our 3-hit combos as much as possible. Try and intercept as much as possible. Which again, the more I use Cyclops, the less I wanted to do, because that type of playstyle just naturally invites mistakes and getting hit in the face. And that is something you don't want to do. But the more precise and the more fancy I try to be, the higher the chance that I got smacked at least a couple of times in a fight. And again, so here as well, basically. I could have just went in for a full combo there. So that's definitely my first takeaway. You do not always want to be super fancy with Cyclops. But everything dies. And that's cool. That's fun. This is the thing that's very enjoyable. Right? But again, just for a point of reference and comparison, some popular, let's say, Nuke champion, we're in Deadpool. And Cyclops, again, he needed build up to level 3 to intercept a bit, and then you nuke down the fight. With, let's say, Deadpool X-Force, this is a 6-star rank 3, by the way, as well, without a relic. Because if there was a relic, I would have probably finished this fight even quicker. But rank 3 Cyclops without a relic, as we can see here, that was 1 level 1 for this type of damage. It was just 1 level 1. And almost dead opponent. With relic, it would probably be dead. And then I activated the second one, and he died within the second one. And effectively the same thing with Venom Duck. I don't think I necessarily need to show it, but even though Venom Duck has a bigger health pool, here you go. The first level 1 is doing his job. I'm building up the second level 1. He's going to be nearly dead by that point, and I'm just going to do my 3-hit combos, going for another 3-hit combo, activate my level 1, and he's dead. So that's 30 seconds here. And that's not amazing. But I figured if you can nuke anything when you get level 3, that is still super useful, just like Titanium. And then I started taking him in his, let's say, matches that you would potentially want to use him. Matchups like Bullseye, because he was kind of advertised against him, because you do have the true focus, and you do have the class advantage, and yeah, and you do have the adrenaline mechanic mitigating the bleed, or it's meant to. But as we can see, up until now, any chip damage that I have taken from those bleeds realistically hasn't been mitigated at all. And here at this point, obviously, you're going to nuke down just about anything. Now, I'm using 6th rank 3 against 7th rank 3s here, but, battlegrounds, that would be still way bigger health gap. But you'd still probably nuke that champion. I still ended up taking significant amount of damage from that bleed. It is going to be crucial how much damage you're going to end up taking in battlegrounds, but I don't think, for instance, the Cyclops is going to be much better than somebody like Medusa against Bullseye, to be honest. Because that adrenaline mechanic isn't doing hardly anything at all. And Korg as well, I had so many messed up fights against Korg. Because, again, despite Cyclops being like a new mutant champion, he's not that great against Korg. And I kept messing up here because I either missed an intercept, something else happened. And as I was doing this fight, I was constantly thinking that I'd much rather use like 15 different champions. Same against Bullseye. There are definitely, like better options. And even though like here I do power through the rock stacks, and that's basically through sheer amount of damage that Cyclops had, still, this was like 15th fight that I did with Cyclops against Korg, and this was just about the best one. And as I kept doing it, again, I just kept thinking I'd rather use somebody else. And here I included this fight against Atum specifically, not only to showcase the fact that, there are tons of mutants now who do Atuma great, and Cyclops is not one of them, but here I want you guys to take a look at that adrenaline mechanic. Because of the way Cyclops fights, any damage that you take that you could potentially get back thanks to your adrenaline mechanic, but it all is running away from you throughout the fight. Because you do have that like one last cash out there. And yeah, of course, when you start nuking, let's say theoretically I could have gotten back to like 85% health. But I could just use champion who doesn't take that damage, and I don't have to take that, still 15% damage. So I am very kind of skeptical in the use of Cyclops. Regardless of how fun I find nuking stuff with him, and I do. Then I again took a look at, the class sheet and the class defender specifically. Against Photon, for instance. I think he can do Photon. I think he's going to be okay against Photon thanks to the true focus. I don't think he's going to be amazing against Photon because you still need to deal with the charges and you still need to be fairly careful. And, I think he's going to be okay. But then we're going to have Spider-Ham. I think he's going to suck against Spider-Ham, even though he's in a weight counter. Then we have Thing. I think he's going to suck against Thing because the protection is going to ruin you. So those are kind of like the more relevant science defenders, let's say. Then, as I mentioned, skill class, which he should counter fully. I think he's decent against Bullseye, but I don't think he's much better against Bullseye than, I don't know, Medusa. I do think Okoye is potentially better against Bullseye. He's not a great Atuma counter. I think he's mid against Korg, because again, there are just so many better options, even from other classes. I don't think he's going to be particularly great against Killmonger because he doesn't arm break or reduce the physical damage from him either. I think he's going to be good against Lumitrix, which might be relevant. I think Lumitrix counter, he will be a good Lumitrix counter, I think. Because again, no miss, no evade. So Lumitrix is basically a noodle to him. So that's awesome. And then Mutants, I think he's going to be okay against Onslaught. Not particularly amazing. Obviously not too great against Domino. I don't think he's going to be particularly amazing against somebody like Bishop. I don't think he's going to be great against Sinister. And the list kind of goes on and on. And then we can go on to the Cosmics. Obviously, he's not going to do anything to Serpent. He's not going to do anything to Nova at all. Because with Nova, unblockable attacks do less damage. I don't think he's going to be great against Thanos. Because he deals damage in such a quick burst. And that protection is going to ruin you. I don't think he's even particularly great against Medusa. Because you don't stop auto block, and if you heavy a lot, then you don't get your precision. So, and Mystic class, again, I think he can be okay against some of the Mystics here because he doesn't inherently have any buffs aside from True Focus, which he keeps refreshing. And I was thinking he should, in theory, be good against Enchantress, and I tried it out, and he's okay. But the fight itself is kind of odd. I think I actually messed it up. Messed up. Oh no, this is the fight that I didn't mess up. But it's not that easy to do a fight against Enchantress either. And you are going to see exactly why. So even though he bypasses miss, which in theory is absolutely awesome, your heavy attack has 2 hits. So when you need to knock her down, you gain power without gaining precision. That's annoying. That's one thing. Second thing is, when she activates her special attack, well, you need to bait it out first sometimes, but when she activates her special attack, you can see here, you kind of don't want to be hitting her too much immediately after the special attack, but you have to. And you have a fairly hard time not losing your true focus, which is annoying. But, okay, once you do ramp up, you know, he's going to be okay. But still, look at all the damage that I took there. And then, obviously, once you're ramped up, you're just going to nuke her. That's fine. Again, it's not, like, as good as I thought it could be or should be. So, when it comes to Cyclops, I like him. He's fun. But his SIG ability is garbage. It almost might not as well exist, I think. And that's because, again, whilst you are accumulating damage and you are accumulating adrenaline, you're not using your special attacks up until the very end of the fight. And that adrenaline is just leaking away. And you're going to be taking much more damage than, you know, with any other champion who had similar SIG ability. Because if you would be throwing specials constantly and fast, you'd be recovering vast majority of it. But you don't. So I do think the SIG ability is completely out of place. And I think that is one of the reasons why he's significantly less good than he could be. Because out of all the new mutant champions, he counters skill class the worst. If you compare him to Jean Grey, who again does have protection against physical bursts, if you do compare him against Gentle and whichever else, you know, Negasonics and Dazzlers that we have had, I think he does the worst job at countering the skill class. He does the best job at countering the wait and miss, which is going to be good in some miscellaneous matchups, as I said before. But, like, as a staple somewhere, that has to be like a very specific matchup for him to shine, I think. But we'll see. Maybe he does find a place. Maybe there are enough of these kind of like niche matchups spread across the classes where he does well. But at the moment, I'm definitely not quite sold on him yet. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next